I'm Carrie Peters, a recognized thought leader in the Microsoft Dynamics community and a Microsoft MVP for business applications. Welcome to the Get Your New View podcast. Keep listening to learn how we work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers that they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Welcome to the next episode of the Get Your New View podcast. I'm Carrie Peters, and today I've got a very special guest with me, Cynthia Priebe, who's one of our senior consultants and trainers, and she's here to talk to us all about the Phase 2 project that would allow EFT and ACH processing to happen. First of all, Cynthia, what do all those letters stand for?
I'm glad you asked, Carrie, because there's even more than those letters. So EFT is electronic funds transfer, and that's how the majority of the world thinks of what we call ACH, which is automated clearinghouse, I think.
I believe so. That sounds right to me too.
Right, yeah. Because that came about because back in the day, we called it a nacho file. No, those aren't the things that you eat. It was a standard that was implemented by the National Association of Clearinghouse something. But the point is this, both letters mean the same thing. And what they mean is our ability to share electronically or digitally payment information. That's it.
Well, that's a lot easier to understand. I like that explanation better than all the alphabet soup there. So exactly. Why did companies put this off until Phase 2?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's one of those, because we've always done things that way, and the we've always done things that way is printing checks. And it's just easier I was printing checks in my legacy system, and I am now going to print checks in Business Central. Even when the partner may say, hey, you know what, while we're going live, we might as well take care of this. It's just one of those things, why rock the boat?
Sure. It involves some process change and different thinking, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think the other problem with it is that it comes across as a little more technical, that it needs somebody who's going to think technically. And we're talking to somebody in AP and they're like, you know what, I would rather just figure out what order to put the checks into the printer than worry about learning this whole new way of doing things.
Yeah. So is it difficult to put this change into place at a company?
Interestingly enough, not really. The most difficult part of it is finding one person at the bank that can be your contact and your go-between to make sure that the file that you're sending meets their standards. In today's world, we have to talk to a virtual assistant, or we have to call into a general help desk line, and we get to talk to all of these different people. So the most difficult part is usually to find that single point of contact. And it's interesting because it has nothing really to do with Business Central.
Yeah, I've experienced that same thing, and that's a really important point, is having that relationship at your bank, somebody who's going to help you walk that through, just so that there aren't delays. Otherwise, the rest of it is pretty simple.
Correct.
So what is it that companies don't know about electronic payments in Business Central that they really should?
Well, until Business Central, until the Azure and the version that we are using today, it used to involve a developer. Mm-hmm. And that was because even though ACH is a standard, it's like anything else. It's a standard, except we have this little different thing that we do. And those little different things in the file needed to be addressed by a developer. Well, today we actually have an interface or a tool built right into Business Central that someone like your partner or someone like an advisor at New View Strategies and or even someone in your organization who is a little more technically adept would be able to make those changes and not rely on a developer. And I think that that's one of the things that's held people back, is that they think, oh, it's just so technical, when really all it is a couple of little tweaks. And if you know how to make those, you can keep things moving. I think the biggest thing for me, or what I have seen, is just that kind of fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And so until you realize that this really isn't that big of a deal, and by the way, while you're working on this, you keep cutting your checks. I mean, it's not like and when you start doing this, you don't have to start doing it with every vendor. You can take it in little bites. So it really, you just have to realize that it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And you just need to get started.
Do you have phase 2 projects that have been on your to-do list for way too long? Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Do you suspect that there just has to be a better way, but you don't know what that is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at NewView Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better business decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.
I know that you've brought a story to tell about one of your favorite stories about a customer who put electronic payments into place. So fill us in on that story.
So part of this was not just putting electronic funds transfer into place, but also putting some other stuff around payables into place. But what ended up happening is, because we went through the process of doing the electronic funds transfer, or ACH, and by the way, they were constantly fielding and making excuses to vendors. Okay, so this poor payables person cut checks every week, and then the next week fielded a call from the vendor saying, I got a check again. I thought you were going to go to ACH. And, so they were starting to dread calls from their vendor. And they had this cumbersome process where they had to get the purchase orders approved. They had to get the fact that they were going to make a payment. That they were going to invoice something or voucher it approved. Then they were going to make the payment and get the payment approved. And then they had to do all this rigmarole with spreadsheets, with Excel, because, checks take a while to clear. And one of the biggest problems that they had was that some checks took 2 weeks to clear and some checks took a week to clear. So they played this game with how much cash they really had as compared to what they thought they had in the general. This poor accounts payable person was just like overwhelmed. So I said, well, if we could take 2 things out of here, stop the calls from the vendors, and stop all the time that you were spending to figure out what was really available in cash, and make the bank reconciliation easier. And of course, that person says, well, I don't do that. And then the woman who did that, of course, sat in the cubicle on the other side, and she popped up and she goes, I do. It was really funny, because it was like, it's not just the person who does accounts payable who's impacted by this. If we could make those things go away, would your job be easier? So, long story short, we slowly implemented ACH, and one of the people in the organization, in the company, said, well, vendors are not going to want to be hassled with us requesting their banking information. And she's like, no, it'll be fine, I assure you. Easily got the information from the vendors, right? Took one vendor, which happened to be us, by the way, and used us as the example. Got that going and was like, wow, this isn't very hard at all. And then got the next one going and the next one going. And the bank reconciliation was easier. And then all of a sudden, we didn't have to worry about doing all this rigmarole to figure out how much cash we really had. Because guess what? When ACH goes through, it goes through. Okay. COVID hit. And all of a sudden, we had more vendors saying, hey, we want to start doing ACH because guess what? People like us were saying to them, hey, if you could get this paperlessly, you wouldn't have all these checks to worry about, right? So everything just kept going. And they actually had turnover in that position for a good reason, because that person was able to move up because guess what? They started realizing that person had a brain.
That's
and
great.
she really understood a lot of stuff. And she was able to move up in the organization. And guess how easy it was to train the new person on what needed to be done? I mean, it was just one of those, okay, we're going to help the AP person, but not really. We're helping the whole organization.
Yeah, I love it. So what are the top things that other companies should do to prepare to be ready to do this type of a project?
I think one of the first things is for the organization to understand it's not just an accounts payable thing, right? So if they're looking at it's just an accounts payable thing, it probably gets bumped down on the list because it's only impacting one person. So I think if you're having a little bit of an internal battle to get the time or the resources from your partner or from someone like New View Strategies to help you get this phase 2 never be done thing done, is to help them realize that it impacts the whole organization in a very positive way. The second thing is once you get that inkling that you're starting to get momentum and it will start happening, I would prepare something that you would send out to your vendors to request information and start taking charge of the things that you can do yourself so that when you get that help from that resource that you need to help get that ACH file and everything all set up, you're all ready to go and hit the ground running.
Yep, I love it. So I know that we do a lot of these for our customers. How does New View make it easy to put this kind of phase 2 project into place?
We help hold your hand. We help you communicate with other people in the organization to get what you need to get done. We give you the step-by-step process in the order it needs to be done. We can find things out there by Googling, by going to the community, by going to learn, dynamics. There's information out there, but it's not always in an order that makes sense. And then I think lastly, we do everything we can so that it's not a big deal. Anytime you make something a big deal, for some reason, it seems to be harder to get done.
Yeah, I love it. It's a very matter-of-fact process. We've got all of the checklists and work papers and things needed to be able to walk you through it. And I know that more and more companies are interested in this type of phase 2 project than ever before. If you're somebody who's listening to us today and talking about electronic payments, and that's something that you want to do, contact us. It's super easy. Just send a quick email to info@getyournewview.com and we'll set up a quick 30-minute call to talk about how you can get phase 2 projects like this done at your company. Did your team ever really get good training to understand how to use your business software? Do you think you could use more features of your software if you just knew how? Are you frustrated with inefficiency that never seems to get better? Do you suspect that there just has to be a better way, but you don't know what that is? We believe every company can benefit from increased efficiency and higher utilization of their software, and that it's possible to have fun while learning exactly how to do that. The experts at New View Strategies work with frustrated Business Central and NAV users who struggle to use their system and find the answers they need. We teach them to truly understand how the system can support their business processes to make immediate and lasting improvements. As a result, they get more done in less time, make better decisions, and even love their system. Please contact us at getyournewview.com to get started.